So grateful, so appreciative, so understanding of the step that Mayor Gonzalez is taking in advancing this conversation forward. To have that kind of leadership is a rare thing, and we are really grateful. Thank you. This kind of experimentation is not really experimentation because we've been going on all around the world, but to bring it into our community where it hasn't been talked about is a huge deal. And for you, Mayor Gonzalez, to forward that conversation, to bring us forward deliberately, thoughtfully, in a way that can answer the questions without leaping to conclusion, is the way it has to happen. We have to be both intellectually sound and we have to be emotionally sound. Emotionally sound has to do with another piece of it. The piece we're going to address tomorrow is there's a governance question, there's a capitalization question, there's a public relations question, there's a mission question. All of those questions need to be thought through as the process unfolds that we're really unleashing, that you've unleashed, Mr. Mayor, with the RFQ and the request for proposals that will follow. That process is all part of taking into account mission, governance, capitalization, etc. The part that we need that no council, no mayor, no brilliant mayor, no individually oriented councilor can achieve for themselves is a public understanding. We have to have a public that gets a hold of this message, understands there's a connection between banking and democracy. There's a question between banking and self-responsibility. There's a question between banking and the need for people to take, or the ability for people to take into account the reserves they have, the resources they have, and put them to work. So what we have to do, what we cannot do, it cannot happen at the state level, can't happen at the national level, can't happen at the city level, unless we begin a conversation, a serious conversation like the one that begins at the symposium tomorrow. Let me just say this, and these are wonderful people we have here, and I'm not going to take any longer. There is no constitutional reason, there's no biblical reason, there's no poetic reason, there's no lyrical reason for having the money that the taxpayers put into the coffers of the city of Santa Fe to go to some global bank that invests in copper mines in Kenya, or water stealing, call it what it is, in Ecuador. There is no need for having our money go out to support projects which have nothing to do with the public purposes upon which our people campaign and for which they have dedicated their lives. We need to be able to do, in a new way, find a way to reserve and rededicate to ourselves, to our own public purposes, the monies that now come into our treasury and which are now being funneled through perfectly honest, perfectly reliable, perfectly decent people, but funneled out of Santa Fe, out of New Mexico, out of our municipalities, to projects that are perhaps more interest return making, money making in Africa or in Kenya or in China. That's all a possibility if you are one of the global banks. But if you are a Santa Fe bank, a bank owned by the people of Santa Fe, your primary concern, your primary need is to take care of the things that Mayor Gonzalez has been talking about. We need to be able to bring that money back in a circle, to create jobs, to create understanding, and to create a possibility for us to move forward here with our own money. There is no breaking. There is no breaking by the people of Santa Fe, by themselves, the people of New Mexico by themselves, of the deadlock in the Congress or on Wall Street of the system the way it's now working or not working. It is dysfunctional at each level. It's dysfunctional in Washington, it's dysfunctional in Wall Street, in having invested so much in the derivatives market. There is no way for us to take that on directly and do away with that, but we can take back to ourselves the responsibility for our own lives, our own community, our own objectives in our own community. We can say these are our top priorities, whether or not they are the best priorities for the large investors from China or wherever they're coming from. That is a democracy question. Democracy is at issue here. Democracy is in jeopardy here, not only here, but across the country. And it is in jeopardy because of the current system which coagulates resources and puts them into things that have to do more with other objectives than the local objectives. If we are going to reinvigorate, re-inspire, re-enthusiasm the people of our own community, we're going to do it by saying we can do this ourselves. We can husband in a careful and thoughtful way ourselves the resources that we have and use them for our own resources, own advantage. And we can do it by being a bank rather than just being an investment fund. A bank, we can actually use the resources we put into this capital and reinvest it in the things we have here the way a bank does. We're not limited to dollar for dollar the way an investment fund does. That gives us the opportunity here to use the leverage that all of the banking community now has for our own purposes rather than for these other purposes decided by boards of directors that are not here and by administrators that are not here. So we are engaged not only in banking tomorrow. When we go to this symposium, it's not just about the details of capitalization or governance. We're also engaged in recapturing the threads of our own lives and recapturing our own sense of dignity and purpose and control to be able to have our community take charge of its own lives, our own destiny. That's a two-piece effort. One, we've got to know about banking. We've got to step across the gulf that separates us from the details of banking and learn the details. And secondly, we have to understand we are doing this for larger purposes than just profit, larger purposes than just interest on capital. We're doing this also because people need the sense of being engaged in their own lives, having their own money go to their own purposes, having their own community, their own mayor, their own council, be using the money that they get back for the purposes that come from the city. That's championing democracy in a place where we don't have to take down the big giants. We can just do what we need to do by ourselves. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you. I think maybe in the